Welcome to Let's Talk. What is holistic sexuality today? Thank you for chiming in again as I start out. Share this with your friends, start a watch party. This is going to be some great information as we talk today. For those who are just not tuning in, my name is Asha Sims. I am a holistic clinical wellness practitioner. And my purpose of this show is just to provide lively discussion and education on different topics that come about in our communities that can help us grow, help us to expand, whether it's our health, our love life, sex life, all of that. All of that goes into holistic health. So thank you for being here today. Again, tune in. Before we get started, share with your friends, share on your page, start a watch party. This is going to be some wonderful information. Today's topic in dealing with holistic sexualities is very important. As a mental health clinician and a holistic practitioner, I come across many that are dealing with blockages when it comes to their sexual identity, sexual expression, past traumas and abuse, or just your general programming when it comes to sex and how it can cause blockages and mental health issues in our community. So today's topic is going to help give you a broader range of approach. And when we say holistic, that means mind, body, and spirit. And I'm going to bring on our guest for today. Hello, Dr. Akua Gray.
Greetings, peace,
Thank
beautiful. How are
you.
you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for being here today. I'm excited. For the public, this is a teacher of mine. I've gone through our iridology class, and she teaches so many. And it's good having a reflection, because sometimes I look at myself and I say I do so much. But when I was reading this lady's biography, and I'm like, okay, it's somebody else out there like me that does a lot. And everything that she does is so needed in our community. But if you would just start out, Dr. Akua, and kind of just give us an overview about who you are. And I know it's so many things that you do, and it's always hard to kind of put it in one box. But if you can just give us a brief overview about you, your background.
Okay. Well, I've been into wellness for more than 25 years, probably almost 30 years now. And I started off in wellness because I had a sick mother. And I wanted to make sure that my life was different than how I saw my mother living her life, because she suffered with kidney disease and also heart disease. So I knew that I wanted something different. And I was fortunate enough to have a brother who also got into wellness. So he introduced me to a lot of things dealing with wellness. And it just blossomed from there. My first certification in wellness was through herbology. And so, using herbs and getting in touch with nature and just learning how to be of my natural essence is what sparked and took me into a role of naturopathy. Now, by profession, I'm an educator. I taught public school for many, many years before I retired. And the passion and my purpose in life, of course, was the wellness. And so then starting a nonprofit organization in 2006 called A Life of Peace Wellness Institute. It's still up and running now for almost 15 years. And as you said, many of the healers that we see in our community today have actually come through a life of peace in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm truly grateful for that as we go into our next 15 years of service to the community.
Blessings.
On a personal level, especially since we're talking about holistic sexuality, I think this is important to mention, is that I have a divine reflection, Dr. Chenu Gray,
Mm-hmm.
and have been married for 33 years.
Beautiful. 33. That's a
And
good number.
and it's still just as sweet as it was from the very first
That is
day.
good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. So you're going to have to tell your secrets.
Oh yeah. So you know, and then we also birthed three sons, and we have two grandchildren. So I am enjoying my grandchildren. They are 6 and 4 years old.
Beautiful.
And also, about 10 years ago, we repatriated to Ghana, West Africa.
Okay.
So I actually live bicontinental. I live
Got
6 months here in the US, and I live 6 months in Ghana every year.
Is he in
And that,
Ghana or is he here?
oh,
Or y'all
he's in
together?
Ghana right now. We're on two different continents, and it's been 3 months, and I am missing my boo for
I
real.
bet so. I bet so. That's beautiful though, to still have that divine connection and with the
Yeah.
time and travel. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a little bit, and of course, I teach so many different courses on wellness to where, if anybody's interested, they can definitely go to my website. But that's a little bit about me.
And what's your website address? I could just put that in case people want to go and check it out. It's
A life,
www.peace.org.
alifeofpeace.org.
I could put that in a group in case
Yes.
someone wants to check you out in some of your wonderful classes that you have to offer.
Yes,
So, getting to the goodies. And this is, I love this topic. And we had spoke briefly at the beginning of the year because I was hosting a couples retreat and understanding how to communicate through energetic centers and the metaphysics of relationships. And you had mentioned your book. And I went out and bought the book and I was like, oh my God, this hit everything on point that I was wanting to cover in the class. And I even went back and started reading. It's always with books, and I have to show everybody your wonderful book, is when you go back and read, it's things that just kind of hit you sometimes. And you're like, oh, that is the truth. That's me. Or it just gave so much knowledge when it comes just not to sex, but just relationships and our definition of programming that comes when it comes with sex. So explain a little bit when you say that holistic sexuality is a spiritual discipline. I know a lot of things in life, in our world, in the Western concept, everything is fragmented. We don't go through things in a holistic. So often the sacredness, the spirituality is often left out of things. It's no different than, like you said, understanding herbology and traditional meds. They're taking a piece out and doing something with it, but we're not looking at the whole spectrum. So explain a little bit about what you feel spiritual discipline is when it comes to holistic sexuality.
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. I appreciate that one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to take it back to our primary source. If a person understands themselves to be a spiritual being first, then everything that we do comes from our spiritual source. So let me put it just plain and simple. Okay. We have first when we are born, our animalistic nature is totally intact. That's why when a baby comes out, nobody has to teach the baby how to suck the breast. It's just a natural thing that happens. So it is a part of the physical and the divine makeup of that child once the baby is born into this world. Now, we have been endowed in our physical bodies with hormonal systems, and those hormonal systems activate certain aspects of our physical beings at certain times. But you didn't make that part of your physical self. The divine made that part of your physical self.
Mm-hmm.
So when we reach puberty and little girls start looking at little boys and they start liking what they see,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get the natural inclination to come together, to touch each other, to feel each other. Okay. So that in itself is the spiritual essence of you coming out. Because again, on that physical level, you didn't make that aspect of yourself. That's why, when we look at sexuality and they try to relate it to religion and let religion control sexuality, it's nothing trumps your natural spiritual self. So Religion says, don't have sex until you get married.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I want you to raise your hand if you know at least 5 people who did that.
Well, no. I don't know if I
No,
do. I know any.
no. And why not?
Right.
Why not? Because your natural self that is guided by the spiritual presence within you activated your sense of needing to be attracted to the opposite sex at the time that it was appropriate for you,
Mhm.
and you made that move.
Mhm. Mhm.
Religion didn't have anything to do with that. It was your natural inclination of how spirit, which is the creator, designed your physical presence. Now, because we operate based on what man says we ought to do with our sexuality, that's where all the confusion comes in at.
Mhm.
That's where all of the heartache comes in at. That's where all of the attachment comes in at. That's where all of the possession comes in at, the jealousy. All of that comes in when you are not in alignment with the spiritual aspect of who you sexually are.
Mm. So,
Okay.
and with that, the whole aspect of the sexual energy, it goes back to a lot of our programming is based upon shame or guilt because of religious programming.
Right.
Um, Within that, and it was a quote you had said, but basically, we all come from sexual energy, but it seems like we have such shame in it and exist in the world are talking about it, but we all come from that. You said most people in life live in a state of sexual dysfunction. And I thought that was deep. And a lot of that is coming from the programming from either religion or our parents or what we thought we knew. But we're afraid to step out and connect with our truth. Could you elaborate? I know from a mental health perspective, I see it. But if you could elaborate a little more about how you feel many of us are living in a state of sexual dysfunction. Because I know there's a lot of people that are not having orgasms. A lot.
Okay,
And you
yes.
don't realize how unhealthy that is.
So when we talk about sexual dysfunction, we first have to look at the that word love
Mm,
and how people don't understand really what love is. Because most people will get together and then they will say, "Oh, you make me feel good. I like you make me laugh. I love you."
mm,
Well, actually, they are then equating love with an emotion. And love is not an emotion. And I do talk about that in the book too. And I teach that love is an energy of connection. And if we were to understand that energy of connection that is all around us, within us,
mhm,
it's in the people that we interact with. So if we were to learn that energy of connection, that would cut out on a lot of the dysfunction because most people will say, "I love you," and then they treat you bad.
right.
And then some people will say, "I love you, but I'm trying to control your life." And then other people in relationships will say, "I love you, but I'm going to punch you in the eye if you don't do what I say."
Right. Right.
So that's what we're looking at in terms of the dysfunction that people operate in, just even surrounding how they formulate their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And another aspect of sexual dysfunction, not only in relationships, but in the very act of sexuality. People taking sexuality from an animalistic point of view instead of a spiritual point of view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have people that actually want to conquer other people with their sexuality, okay? By having multiple partners, sleeping with this person, sleeping with this person, and not really bringing any spiritual connection into the process at all. And that is very dangerous. That is something that we see women doing,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
controlling men with sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that we also see men doing,
Mm-hmm.
conquering women with
With
sex.
mm-hmm.
So that is truly a dysfunctional aspect of what is involved in sexuality that we see on TV all the time. We hear it in the music all the time. We see it in the movies all the time. And some people actually seek out people to not be connected with, to have sexual encounters with. And
Yeah.
all of that is dysfunctional
Mm-hmm.
sexual behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you would say sex. I saw in the book where you were saying that sex does not equate to love, and how some people have that misinterpretation or even the rejection if their partner's not feeling sexual towards them, they don't feel that they love them. So that's how they kind of put the two in one that causes a lot of the dysfunctioning, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also in the book talk about expectations
Mm-hmm.
and how people put their expectations out on each other. And then when expectations are not met, it becomes a problem in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of what to do instead of expectations, you allow the person to be their own divine selves, and you be your own divine selves. And
Mm-hmm.
you respect that divinity in each other, because even though you are together, you're still two different manifestations of the Creator's power.
Right.
And
Right.
as we can see in nature, the manifestation of the Creator's power is innumerable. So you are one of those innumerable aspects of the Creator's power. And when you can respect that in yourself, then you can also respect that in another person and exist in harmony. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what relationships are. It's not one controlling the other. It's not, you know, just everybody doing what everybody wants or expects everyone to do, but it's you respecting that person's divinity and how they choose to use that divinity. And that's something that you do not see in relationships when people are not taught that.
Right.
And
Right.
if we are getting our conditioning from our parents, our parents were dysfunctional concerning their sexuality. We
Right.
know our grandparents were dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
We're just 100 years out of the slavery experience. Now, how much metaphysical information can you get within that time when you're trying to struggle to survive?
Right.
So that's
Well,
why once we receive that from that critical mass, and you yourself are a part of that critical mass when it comes to elevating the spiritual consciousness of our people. So
mm-hmm.
when that critical mass begins to now spread the word to the masses, then we will see changes. So here we are still allowing our children to be conditioned about their sexuality through the media.
Right.
And that too has to change. But the only way that that's going to change is that it changes in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So parents have to begin to operate on a holistic sexuality level, so that when children begin to have sex, and they're going to have sex,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Probably before
They're
they.
going to grow up and they're going to have sex, because
Mm-hmm.
that is the natural spiritual thing for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can break those cycles of dysfunction by teaching children from a spiritual point of view about sexuality, not a
Mm-hmm.
religious point of view.
Right.
We're talking about them being aligning in alignment with their natural selves, and
Mm-hmm.
their natural selves, and that trigger for their natural sexuality turns on at different ages.
Right.
It
Which
turns on
goes
at different
back to
ages. It
fear.
turns Exactly. It turned on for me at a very early age,
Yeah.
where I actually had desire.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Now, what
I'm
would you
not going to
say is
tell.
early, even though it's subjective? Some people say, "Oh, that's too early." Is it really a too early? Is it some are aware of sensations at 7, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are
Are
sexual.
ready for
It's just they
sex.
have an
Yes.
awareness of their body, but because of our fear and our culture, we want to shame or why they're doing this or why are you hunching this blanket, and not understanding it's a certain amount of awareness in you genetically as well.
Right. And so when we see those types of behaviors, then we have to channel them in the right way and explain this is a natural part of you. This is what will happen one day in terms of your attraction to another person. Now, let's make sure when this is time for you that you do it in the right way to where you don't harm yourself and you don't harm another person spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or physically.
And I'm glad you brought that up about kids. Is another sister that I'm going through her sacred sexuality course, and is awakening, understanding the different archetypes that we play, from the mother to the warrior, and raising our kids, but understanding one about ourselves. And I think what your book also taught me was having a sense of self and understanding your desires and needs, because if we don't come to peace with that, it's hard to be in a relationship. And so many people have different perspectives of their sexual health or their sexual perspective, but never communicate it. And so you have marriages that come based upon sex, but they never really go together. They kind of grow apart. And marriages, relationship, however, because that fear of being rejected, or because if I feel this way, then they may see it as shame or condemn me, or what we say, the slut walk, that whole thing of being sexual free, but are concerned about their choices may be seen as negative. So would you say that we have to be secure and have an understanding of our own programming, and before we even think about having a partner included in it?
Ooh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. And that's one thing that when I counsel couples, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that we look at is who you are as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you need to work on in yourself to fulfill your purpose in life? And in fact, the question comes out is, what is your purpose? So
Right.
we talk about those particular things in counseling sessions, and that is so important
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
women, especially, we are nurturers.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to give, 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 and nurture because that's a natural part of our divine energy. Okay, we are the ones that birth, we are the ones that have to care for the little ones, we are the ones that nurture. So when it comes to us working on ourselves sexually, that too is you analyzing what your dysfunctions are. When
Mm-hmm.
and you have to look back at your past relationships. Okay, not you in particular, but a
Mm-hmm.
woman.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Look back at her past relationships and say, what was right about this that brought me peace? Okay, we're not going to be concerned about that happiness thing because being happy is not what people want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when we talk about happiness, it is an emotion. And because most people are emotionally dysfunctional, then we can't base anything on emotions, how you
Right.
feel.
Right.
So our natural state of being is a state of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go back and look at your relationships, you have to see what aspect of that relationship brought you peace and what aspect of that relationship got you emotionally in turmoil.
Mm.
How did it physically harm you? How did it mentally affect your mind in a negative way?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go back and do those kinds of self assessments. And when you can do those kinds of self assessments, I would probably say, probably within the last three relationships. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
go way back to, for when you were in 10th grade or anything, but
Right.
maybe like your last three relationships and really look at what aspects brought you peace and what aspects fed that emotional ego that you had just because you wanted to feel good and you wanted to have Miss Right or Mr. Right.
Mm.
And once you see what brought you peace, then those are the kinds of things that you build on. And another aspect of working on yourself, and this is one thing that I do in my couples counseling too,
Mm-hmm.
is Make a list of everything that you want in your ideal mate. And once you get that list of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 things that you want in an ideal mate, then you have to do a self check against that list. Are
Mm-hmm.
you everything on that list?
Right, that you're asking for, correct.
If
Mm-hmm.
you're not everything on that list, then your vibrational alignment is not going to attract that kind of person.
Right, right, right. Because it goes back to laws of attraction. You attract the frequency that you vibrate on and attract that type of person with that same energy.
There you go.
It
Exactly.
goes
And
back
so
to
you have so
accountability because we have to look at selves. It's not we go into the victim mode to say it's this or they did that and they did that, but it's really accountability for self on what we're accepting based upon our feelings or programming.
right. And I have to take that kind of thing back to when I first met my divine reflection.
Mm-hmm.
We were both we were both teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
okay, back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we attracted each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we were literally on the same level. We came from single mother households.
Mm-hmm.
We were both very good people in terms of having a kind heart. We were both poor in
Mm-hmm.
terms of just getting out of high school, trying to go to college
Right.
and working jobs just to make money to pay bills.
Mm-hmm.
So we were on the same level.
Right. Right.
Okay. And then as our relationship grew, he grew a little bit, I came on up. I grew a little bit, he came on up. I grew a little bit, he came on up. And then eventually, working on ourselves just based on who we were, we eventually started growing together and elevating together spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. You have to look at all those different aspects
Mhm. And even,
of
and
your
within,
relationship.
I think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. As you were saying, you were growing. And one of the things I teach to a lot of couples as well is how, where were you when you initially met your mate? And, even did you have some dominant or chakra, say if it's your root chakra survival, you tend to attract to someone that can make you feel that comfort in that. And as time go into relationships, you may gain that strength in that area, which may shift the dynamics of the relationship. Because if this person came in wanting to be this protector and financial secure, but then now that this person is secure, they're not as needed, it changes the dynamics. Within your 33 years of relationship, would you say that how did you adjust with the shifts? Did your mind change in regards to sex? I know being single and being sexually active may change when you become married due to other obligations and outsourcing of your energy. Do you feel there was a shift? And if so, in marriages, how do you move through that? And I'm not going to say marriage, I'm going to say relationships. How do you move through
Mhm.
that shift of growth? Because you might have went in this way, and then somewhere in there you might have said, oh, I think poly may be more adaptable for me. Because of that fear, how should couples address their own switch in their sexual expression or ideology as they grow and releasing that fear of rejection?
Okay, I think you just answered the question for that, but I'm going to elaborate on it.
Okay.
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have open and honest communication. And in the book, I give several different types of communication that a good relationship should have. Okay. I talk about progress communication. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about sexual change communication. I talk about financial communication. I talk about I think it's probably about 9 or 10 different types of communication levels that are necessary
Right. Mm-hmm.
for you to have in your relationship. Because anytime a shift happens and that shift brings an uneasy emotion into the relationship, it needs to be talked about.
Right. Right. And
Because
that's the block
if
too.
it's allowed,
Right.
yeah, if it's allowed to fester, then that's going to cause disharmony.
Mhm. Mhm.
So both parties in the relationship, or all three parties, or all three or all four parties in the relationship, have to be willing to open those channels of communication whenever there is a spiritual or emotional or mental shift or physical shift in the relationship that causes any inkling of disharmony. It has to be talked about.
Has to be talked about.
No more holding in. Well, every time I start talking about this, you get mad. No, it's time out for that.
Mhm.
It's time to set
Mhm.
emotions aside and say, this is what it is that we are feeling. And I tell people in a minute, don't be scared to leave a relationship if it's not working.
Mm. Say that again, Dr. Akua. Say that
Don't
again.
be don't be scared to leave a relationship if it's not working. I teach about detaching
Mhm. Mhm.
and learning how to detach, because two people, three people, four people, since you brought the poly into it,
Mhm.
coming
Mhm.
together are only coming together for one thing, and love don't have nothing to do with. The
Mm.
only reason why we come into relationships is to help each other fulfill divine purpose.
That's it. Ooh, I got goosebumps on that. Yes.
That's the only thing. Love is a given. It's the energy that connects all of us all the time with everything, everything.
Right.
So why are we together? Because I'm going to help you with your purpose and you're going to help me with mine. And we're going to grow together to fulfill our divine purposes. That's why we're in a relationship.
Mm.
Otherwise, you just playing.
You're just
You just
playing.
playing
Right.
with your sex. You're
Mm.
just playing
Recreate.
with each other's mind. You're
Right.
just playing with each other's body. And you're just playing with each other's emotions. And
Mm.
that's not healthy.
That is not healthy. And that is so deep you say that, because the whole thing now, explaining to our youth and children early on about the importance of sex in the union. And many, working on a college campus, as I used to teach freshman orientation, I would ask the students, why did you first have sex? Who taught you about sex? And just hearing the lack of information they have, but most either said it was fun or it was a stress reliever, and they never said anything about connecting with a partner to evolve and to do certain things. So I think that whole program is causing us to be so dysfunctional, because when we date now, because if we're not connected with source and see ourselves as a divine being, you're not focused on mating with someone that has that same ideal goal, and that's where you can become unequally yoked, or to me it's sexually damaging to your life force energy of being with an energetic being that is not elevating or on that same frequency. It's like if you're on one vibrational frequency and they're on another frequency, that's when it can cause imbalances in the body. And that was something that you put in here that just hit me in the heart, when you were talking about the anatomy of sex, and on page 39 about the vagina and penis bliss. And there was this one paragraph that stood out to me, because I was at a point, even though I'm approaching 50, I was considering having a hysterectomy because of the ongoing cycles, that it was just overwhelming, it was draining. And the paragraph goes, a vagina in need of healing is one that knows suffering and disconnection from the divine. It knows nights of, this is not the man for you. Why are you allowing this to happen again? Or I'm afraid to tell anyone this is happening to me. Or why is there so much blood and pain? That right there shifted me, because even as a teacher, I would say the teacher is also a student, but understanding energetic energy and what we take in and what we exchange has an impact on our bodies, and our body has a way of communicating with us when things are not right. But if we're not divinely connected to ourselves, we don't get those messages, and then we can become enemies with our body. And I think a lot of women, we separate from our womb because of the hurt, because of the pain. But in actuality, it's your womb crying to you, saying, this is not healthy. So we should not be in pain. We should not always be in blood. And metaphysically, that is letting us know that there's some imbalances. Diet,
Right.
emotions, health, we should not be having cycles like that. So we have to go in and look at our sexual health as well as our mental and our emotional health. But I would just want to say that was really connecting for me. That really hit home, and especially, and then with a lot of the women that I know working in that area and that are going through issues with their cycles and administration, really has a lot to do with the suffering that they're in denial of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted you to explain a little more about, as we're talking about the mentality and understanding your approach to things and your ideology, you talked about the sexual thought patterns. And so I took a little quiz, and my approach is a mental sexuality. Like, why I have you here, can you give me a brief breakdown of what that means about myself? And I think it's funny because even my friends and part of my spiritual lessons have been to me, get out your head. Get out your head. But that's one of the dominant areas that I focus. So this was like, oh, here we go again. I'm at the mental sexuality aspect of things. But between the physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual, just can you give a breakdown of those approaches that people may have when it comes to sex?
Okay, yeah. Let me start at the bottom and work my way up to the top then. When it comes to physical sexuality, this is where this is that person that acts on animalistic nature, period. Okay. They go into sex with just their own satisfaction in mind. You know, it's kind of like that Color Purple scene where he get up there and do his business, and that's it. That's the whole act of it. He's not considering her or anything. Okay. So that's the physical aspect in terms of, let me see, what did I call them? You know, you write a book and sometimes you just, faculty. Sexual faculties. Yeah, exactly. Sexual faculties. Okay. So the physical sexual faculty is that animalistic nature. You know, that is the person that's just, you know, going to see prostitutes, you know, getting in a relationship and all they're doing is just doing their business. That's it. Okay. Now, the emotional faculty is that person that wants to control the sexual, what another person does sexually. Okay. Meaning that's that jealous person. Okay. That's that envious person. That's that person that says, I don't want you looking at nobody else. I don't want you being with nobody else. I don't want you talking to nobody else because your body belongs to me. Okay. That is that emotional person. They are very controlling when it comes to sexuality with their mate or mates. Okay. Then when it comes to the mental person, okay, that mental person understands that there is a sharing process that has to take place. And that sharing process still also includes some possessiveness of, you know, I'm sharing this with you. I'm receiving what you have, but you can't give this to everybody else. This is mine to share with you and to receive from you. And we're going to keep this just among ourselves, okay, whether it's polying or whatever. But the person understands that there should be some sexual freedom. However, don't take it too far.
Right. It's boundaries.
Yeah, they set clear boundaries, okay? And they still have that attachment. So that mental faculty can still go through a heartbreak.
Right. Because of the attachments that we're putting
because
on
of the attachment.
Okay, gotcha. That makes
now
sense.
Out of and this quiz that I have in the book, it's not based on any science or anything. It is one of the ways that I've actually studied people and have, looked at sexual behavior and relationship behavior is what I formulated this quiz on. Okay. Now let's get to the spiritual. Now, the spiritual is between 80% and 100%. Okay. So
Mhm.
the spiritual is that person that moves into a sexual relationship with solely for the purpose of spiritually nurturing their partner. That means that they don't have any attachments, they don't have any jealousy, they don't have any possessiveness. They are giving from their spiritual essence to physically nourish their partner, spiritually nourish their partner, emotionally nourish their partner, and mentally nourish their partner. So it is that person that understands who they are as a spiritual being, and that the most powerful energy that they possess is their sexual energy, and them understanding that their sexual energy can open up spiritual portals in their partner to heal physically. They understand that they can open up spiritual portals in their partner to make all of their mental manifestations come to life. And they understand that they can open up spiritual portals in their partner to where they are emotionally balanced, and they can both spiritually ascend by giving and receiving that spiritual information from each other during sex.
Right.
That's the spiritual faculty.
Right. And that's the transcending part, because like you said, when you think about it, how we take the sacredness of sex and the orgasm away, but that's what brought us into this world. So that portal being open during the time of sexual engagement and an orgasm, it's opening a portal. And I'm like, I try to work with couples of being more intent when they're in sexual relationships. During that time of that portal is opening up that orgasm of what they can create and what they can put out there into the universe to bring forth if we had more sexual responsibility with this energy force. It's like it can do so much, but like I said, I think many of us are stuck in the lower animalistic, and so we're producing babies, we're producing, children and seeds of this, but are we taking that energy to a higher source? I know in the book you also talked about the reflexology. I don't think a lot of people understand. People understand the reflexology of the hands and the feet, but we talk about really sexual healing is longevity. We need it in our lives to keep us functioning, because the body has pressure points to help heal. Can you go in a little bit about understanding that whole engagement of the sexual act and how it's healing for our bodies? I don't know if my camera slowed up. Did you get that, Dr. Ray? I don't know if it slowed up.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Sexual reflexology is nothing new. It's been around for many, many, many years. And so years. And for the ancient medical practices like Tibetan medicine, like Ayurvedic medicine, they will see that sexual reflexology is one of the things that is talked about in various aspects of our ancient medical
Mm-hmm.
history. And so the reflex points on the body usually are in alignment with the upper, the middle, and the lower parts of the body. So when it comes to sexual aspects of reflexology, it depends on the male and the male's depth of penetration.
Mm-hmm.
So It can also be controlled by the female if she is on top during sexual expression, on
Mm-hmm.
which areas of concentration she learns to move her muscles in certain areas around the penis to affect the physical health of her mate. So
Mm.
let's say, for instance, if we're talking about of a headache, migraines, okay, then she can focus her depth of penetration and her muscle movement, her vaginal muscle movement around the head of the penis. Okay. And if one has studied the Taoist is a very good resource for that,
Mm-hmm.
then the depth of penetration and the amount of strokes given for certain areas of healing can be very beneficial for that mate's health. And it can come from a female point of view or a male point of view, okay? And that's why, again, learning how your body works physically as well as spiritually will be beneficial
Mm-hmm.
for the sexual experience. So that depth of penetration is very important to learn when you want to take sex into the physical healing processes of your relationships. Yes, we are saying you can sexually heal your mate from high blood pressure. Yes, we are saying you
Yeah.
can
Mm-hmm.
sexually heal
Mm-hmm.
your mate from migraine headaches. You can sexually heal your mate from liver disease. You can sexually heal your mate from autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All of that.
But how? And that's where your study of sexual reflexology comes in.
Wonderful. 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 This is such wonderful information. It's just like I said, I want people to go out and get your book because there's so much more in there to actually go into, and just helping to expand your own awareness of sexuality. And more what I'm loving about this is more about really connecting with yourself, connecting with source at the ultimate level of experience. And so with this, I think you will conclude, well, that this helps our community. And we don't really think about sexual health being the core to keeping our community connected, and even more from an Afro-American approach of things, because we are a collective culture. We it's about collectivism, coming together as a community. So would you say, even from a cultural perspective, that this sexual dysfunction has caused some lack of cohesiveness in our own communities because of this programming, Dr. Akua? I know it's a delay here. You still with me? Our energy getting too high. It's always at the end and want to shut down. But eventually, hopefully, there you go. I think you're coming back in. Can you hear me? I think you're frozen on my end.
Oh, yes. Yes. Cause a big rift in our community. So, what I so yes, it has caused a big rift in is that we cannot continue to let the media educate our families on their sexuality. That is number one. Also, and not let religion educate our people sexually. One of the best approaches to deprogramming is to connect with the natural laws concerning coupling those divine laws, those natural laws of sexuality with spiritual knowledge. That is the main way we are going to be able to reverse the sexual dysfunction in our community. We have to merge in perfect harmony nature, spirituality. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a mess.
That's it. Right. Connecting with source. Yes, thank you. Um, I thank you so much. Your internet, I think, is kind of freezing up on us or anything, but I want to ask those out there, does anybody that is listening at this point in time have any questions that they want to ask for her to elaborate on? This is the time you can post them and we can answer them. But I encourage, again, I want to put this book up. I saw in the group somebody was asking. This is her book, Holistic Sexuality by Dr. Akua Gray. Wonderful book. And she also has even some of her other classes and everything. Dr. Gray, do you want to share, do you have any upcoming classes or courses that you may want to tell folks about that you may be teaching coming up? It's like a 40-second delay. We're going to see how long it comes in. Right? And I'm not sure if you're getting this, Dr. Gray. I'm not sure how long the delay is or whatnot, but can't hear you. Are you still there with us? Okay. Energy must be high. We always get this way towards the end of the show or whatnot. But I do want to say, I want to thank you for being a part of the show today. And you guys, if there's anything that you need from Dr. Akua Gray, I put her website up. Please reach out to her. She's a doula, holistic doula. She's a Reiki master, metaphysical teacher. I could go on and on from the different variety of modalities that she does offer for you guys to check out or anything. I think your internet is working a little better. Can you hear me, Dr. Gray? Is it a delay? You there? I see you smiling. It's just this whole delay. But if not, you guys, thank you guys for being a part of things. And hopefully we can bring Dr. Akua Gray to Charlotte, North Carolina. She's in Texas. So I would love to elaborate more with you and more, because this could be so many other parts of this workshop and all. But I want to thank you for being a part today. And hopefully we can have you on again, or have you come to the QC and share your love and energy with us then. So if there's anything you think you can tap into, I don't know if it's still working. Are you with me before we close out? So 40 seconds. All I see you is just smiling. All right. Well, we're going to close out. And I thank everybody for being a part. Share this with your friends. I love you guys. Blessings. Namaste. Thank you, Dr. Akua Gray. Appreciate you. We got the gist of what you were saying. So we thank you. And hopefully more people will come and get your book. Thank you, everybody. Love you all.